Steam curled from the diner's old coffee pot when Sarah Mitchell's voice cut through the hum of plates. Let her go. Every fork froze midair. The billionaire's son, drunk on power and whiskey, still gripped the teenage waitress's wrist, until Sarah stepped forward. Her hands shook, but her eyes didn't. You heard me, she said louder this time. Let her go. 9 days behind on tuition. A mother fading in a care home. $847 left in her account, and she was about to lose the only job keeping it all afloat. But in that moment, fear bowed to something stronger. No one else moved. Not the manager trembling behind the counter. Not the customers pretending they didn't see. Just Sarah standing between cruelty and silence. By the time the door slammed, she was unemployed. By nightfall, her name would reach a billionaire's desk. And by morning, a helicopter would land outside her diner window. Because sometimes, saying no to the wrong man is how everything begins. Before we dive in, subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales and tap like. This story will remind you why courage still matters. The moment Sarah stepped out into the night, the wind off Lake Michigan hit her like truth. Cold, sharp, impossible to escape. The neon sign of Betty's Diner flickered behind her, sputtering between light and darkness, just like her future. Her breath fogged in the air as she clutched the cheap jacket tighter around her body. Fired. The word echoed louder than the traffic on 79th Street. She walked home with her head down, the city swallowing her whole. Chicago at night didn't care who you were. It chewed up everyone the same. By the time she reached her building, her legs ached, and her fingers had gone numb from gripping the strap of her purse. Inside her apartment, everything was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how alone you are. She sank onto the couch and opened her phone. $847. That number glared at her like an accusation. I did the right thing, she whispered, as if saying it aloud might make it feel true. But Wright didn't pay rent. Wright didn't buy her mother's medication. Wright didn't keep her in school. Her phone buzzed. An overdue notice from the nursing department. Then another from Riverside Care Home. Balance exceeds $2,000. She stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. When the tears came, they weren't delicate. They came in waves, shaking her shoulders, making her chest tighten until she could barely breathe. The next morning, Sarah forced herself up. No one was going to save her. She printed resumes, walked through the city handing them to coffee shops, diners, even gas stations. But every manager smiled with that same look, pity disguised as politeness. Can you provide a reference? They'd ask. She'd swallow hard. My last manager doesn't take calls anymore. The lie sat bitter in her mouth. By day 3, the hope had drained out of her eyes. She spent hours staring at the ceiling, listening to the upstairs neighbors fight, the radiator hiss, the city move on without her. Then came the knock. A single envelope slid under the door, cream paper, embossed seal. For a moment she thought it was eviction. But when she saw the logo, her stomach dropped. Wellington Industries. Ashford's. She tore it open. The message was short. Mr. Victor Ashford requests to meet. 2 p.m. tomorrow. Betty's Diner. Her pulse kicked up. He knows, she whispered. The father. The billionaire. The man whose son she had just stood up to. All night she ironed her blouse, trying to calm her shaking hands. By morning, she hadn't slept a minute. The sky hung low and gray as she crossed the street toward the diner. The air felt charged like something was about to break. When the black car pulled up, it was so silent it might as well have appeared from nowhere. The woman who stepped out, gray hair, navy suit, spoke her name like she already knew the story. Mr. Ashford would like to speak with you. The drive felt endless. City lights blurred into glass and steel, then gave way to the wide, empty airfield. When Sarah saw the helicopter waiting, her breath caught. The sound of its blades rose, steady and menacing, whipping her hair across her face. She hesitated. Is this safe? She asked. The woman smiled faintly. Safer than you think. They lifted into the sky, Chicago shrinking below. Streets, lights, all the smallness of the life she thought she'd lost. She clutched the seatbelt, half afraid, half certain she'd wake up any second. When the helicopter landed on the rooftop, a tall man waited by the helipad. Not the image of a billionaire she'd imagined. No arrogance, no gold watch, just quiet authority. "Miss Mitchell," he said, extending his hand. "I've been waiting for you." Inside his office, the walls were all glass. The city spread beneath them like a confession. Victor Ashford studied her for a long time before speaking. "I saw the footage," he said simply. "Every second." Her stomach twisted. "I didn't mean to cause trouble, sir. I just—" He raised a hand. "You stopped my son from becoming the man I feared he'd become. You didn't cause trouble. You revealed it." Sarah blinked, unsure if she was hearing right. Victor leaned back in his chair. "Do you know how many people stood there and did nothing? Managers, customers, staff. All silent. But not you." She tried to speak, but emotion stuck in her throat. Then his voice hardened. "Jackson has been removed from his position. His accounts are frozen. As of this morning. He's learning the meaning of labor in our Montana facility. He'll earn $15 an hour until I say otherwise." Sarah stared, speechless. "I can't undo what happened," Victor continued. "But I can correct what followed. I've acquired Betty's Diner. Effective immediately, you are the new general manager." She blinked once. "General what?" "You'll make $75,000 a year," he said matter-of-factly. "Your mother's care will be covered. Your tuition paid in full. You'll finish nursing school and, when you graduate, oversee the employee health division of Wellington Industries." Her chair felt unsteady beneath her. "Why?" she whispered. "Because integrity," he said quietly, "is rarer than gold. And when I see it, I invest in it." For a long time neither spoke. Then Sarah's voice broke the silence. "I don't know what to say." Victor smiled faintly. "Say yes, Miss Mitchell. And mean it." She did. 3 months later, Betty's Diner looked nothing like it used to. The cracked vinyl seats had been replaced with soft leather booths. The neon sign glowed steady again. The smell of burnt coffee was gone, replaced by fresh brew and cinnamon pie. But the real change wasn't in the decor. It was in the people. Tommy stood behind the counter wearing a clean uniform and an easy grin. "Managers coming through," he teased as Sarah walked in. Rose, now confident and steady, was training 2 new hires. She looked up and smiled. "We sold out the lunch special again." Sarah nodded proudly. "That's what happens when the food's good and no one gets harassed." They laughed, but everyone in that diner remembered the night it had all changed. Each morning, Sarah stopped by her mother's new care home before work. Lakeside Manor was filled with sunlight and music. Her mom had good days now. Days with laughter, even recognition. "My Sarah," she'd say softly, holding her daughter's hand. "Always doing the right thing." Those visits were everything. At night, Sarah studied for her final exams, often falling asleep with her notes still open on the kitchen table. The exhaustion was the good kind, the kind that meant she was building something. Still, part of her wondered what had become of Jackson Ashford. She tried not to, but sometimes the thought came uninvited. Did he feel remorse? Or just humiliation? She found out the answer 6 months later. It was a gray morning at Wellington's North Terminal warehouse. Sarah had just finished inspecting the new medical bay when she saw him. Head down, wearing a navy work uniform, sleeves rolled up, dirt under his fingernails. "Jackson." He froze when their eyes met. The arrogance that once filled his face was gone, replaced by something uncertain. He walked over slowly, stopping a few feet away. "Miss Mitchell," he said quietly. "I didn't expect." "Neither did I," she replied, calm but firm. He looked away. "I was wrong. About that night. About a lot." Silence hung between them, heavy but cleansing. "I don't expect forgiveness," he added. "But I'm trying to earn a life that deserves one." She studied him for a long moment. His hands, once manicured and careless, were rough now. His voice carried no pride, only fatigue. "Good," she said finally. "Then maybe you're starting to understand what real work feels like." He nodded. "I am." When she turned to leave, Jackson called after her. "Thank you for not letting me destroy someone else's life that night." She didn't look back. "You did that yourself, Jackson. I just stopped you sooner." By summer, Sarah graduated with honors. The ceremony was held under clear blue skies, and as her name was called, she saw Victor in the audience, applauding quietly, pride glinting in his eyes. Afterward, he approached her. "I told you this day would come," he said. She smiled. "You did. But I still can't believe it." "Believe it," he said. "Because from now on, people will look to you the way I once hoped they'd look to my son." She hesitated. "How is he?" Victor sighed. "Learning. Slowly. Painfully. But learning." Sarah nodded. "Then maybe that's enough." That evening, she returned to the diner. The lights glowed warm against the twilight. Rose was closing up, humming to herself. Tommy wiped the counter one last time. Sarah stepped outside, the city alive around her. Honking cars, laughing voices, wind carrying the smell of rain. She looked up just as a familiar sound filled the air, the distant chop of helicopter blades. She smiled, remembering the first time she'd heard that sound and how terrified she'd been. Now it felt different. It wasn't power descending from above. It was possibility. Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor. "First day as Director of Health and Wellness, Monday at 9. Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell." She typed back one word. "Ready." But life wasn't finished making its point. 2 weeks later, a headline spread through every Chicago outlet. Wellington Heir charged after attempted bribery at warehouse. Company confirms termination. Jackson had tried to buy his way out of accountability again, offering a supervisor money to falsify his shift reports. The cameras caught everything. When Victor called Sarah into his office, his voice was quiet, steady. "I had hoped the lesson had taken. It seems it hadn't." "What will happen to him?" Sarah asked softly. "He'll face the courts," Victor replied. "This time I won't intervene." Outside, the rain began to fall, streaking the glass windows like tears the city didn't bother to hide. Sarah stood looking out at the skyline. "Sometimes people only change when the world stops protecting them," she said. Victor nodded slowly. "That's what you taught me." He turned toward her, his expression softer. "You changed more than one life, Sarah. Including mine." She smiled faintly. Then maybe it was worth losing everything for. The next morning, she walked into Betty's diner, the place where it had all started. The staff greeted her like family. Laughter filled the air. A little girl at one of the booths pointed to Sarah and whispered to her mom, "Is that the lady from the news?" Sarah laughed. "I used to be just the waitress. Now you're the boss," Tommy said, pouring her coffee. She sipped it slowly, savoring the warmth, the taste of something earned. Through the window, the city moved on as it always did, but somewhere above it, the sound of another helicopter echoed faintly, a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage can ripple high enough to be heard by those who have the power to change everything. And for those who abuse that power, the fall is always louder. That night, as rain traced silver lines down the diner's window, Sarah watched her reflection and hardly recognized the woman staring back. She wasn't the frightened waitress anymore. She was proof that losing everything can sometimes reveal what you were meant to become. The city outside kept moving, loud and alive, but for the first time she didn't feel small in it. She'd learned that real strength doesn't shout, it endures. That truth doesn't need permission to stand tall. Behind her, laughter drifted from the kitchen. Rose teasing Tommy, the hum of life continuing. Sarah smiled, knowing that kindness had remade the place more than money ever could. Somewhere above the city, a helicopter passed again, its lights sweeping the clouds like a reminder. Sometimes courage takes you higher than you ever dreamed. If this story moved you, tap like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales. where every act of truth finds its voice.